The House comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1 in the name of Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements regarding government policy?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he stand by his statement that the Auditor-General's report into the Sky City deal vindicates his government, given that the Auditor-General's response to his claim was not to agree with him but rather to state, we have established deficiencies on the part of both officials and ministers?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, absolutely, and the reason for that is the member will be aware that the Auditor-General's report was divided into 3 parts. The first part of it was focused on my involvement, and I was totally and utterly cleared and vindicated in that. That was my only involvement.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table a legal opinion by constitutional lawyer Stephen Franks, Principal at Franks and Ogilvie, outlining serious legal deficiencies in the government Sky City deal. The opinion is dated May 16, 2013.
Leave is taught to table that a legal opinion. Is there any objection? There appears to be none. It can be
Supplementary.
tabled. Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with Mr. Frank's view that the agreement with Sky City is, quote, arguably unlawful and skirts important constitutional safeguards, end quote? And if he doesn't understand this constitutional principle, will he read the central case on the issue, the case of Fitzgerald and Muldoon?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, but I'm sure what Mr. Franks would find unlawful is someone coming in telling the New Zealand public they've got 100,000 signatures
Order.
which are fake or not real.
Order.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with Mr. Frank's view that, quote, the ability to purchase a dispensation from regulation sits uncomfortably with the rule of law?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no, and no more than the Labor Party would agree with that, given they did exactly the same deal back in 2001.
Supplementary.
Order. 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 Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he agree with Mr. Franks that, quote, case law discourages anything to fetter Parliament's power to legislate on future matters, end quote? And if so, will he reconsider the aspects of the Sky City deal that do exactly this, such as the 35-year clause?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, no.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russel Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Isn't this backroom deal with Sky City, along with the cancelling of democracy in Canterbury, taking away the rights of carers to have their day in court, giving Bathurst Resources the keys to our conservation estate, stopping free speech at sea, granting the GCSB the power to spy on us and failing to act in good faith to reform MMP, indicative of a government that will not let our democracy stand in the way of special favours for their friends and donors?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, if the government was doing that, I might be inclined to agree with them, but it's actually not correct. If one looks at, for instance, the changes to people's ability to protest at sea, they're very much there. There's a safety area that actually makes sense for all the parties. When it comes to GCSB, well, the member sits on the ISC committee and is well and truly aware. In fact, GCSB has been carrying out activities under an agency relationship for a long period of time. In fact, all we're doing is clarifying the law, so there's no change in position there. There is no backroom deal with Sky City. It's been totally transparent, and even though the member doesn't like to hear it, my role in that was totally cleared by the Auditor-General.
You're right. Supplementary.
Order. Order.
Supplementary.
Would the member just ask his supplementary question?
Supplementary question, Mr. Speaker. Will he listen to Otago University Law Professor Andrew Geddes, Canterbury University Law Professor Philip Joseph, former Prime Minister and Law Commission Head Sir Geoffrey Palmer, current New Zealander of the Year Anne Salmond?
Order. I'm having trouble hearing the question. Will the member please start the question?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Will he listen to Otago University Law Professor Andrew Geddes, Canterbury University Law Professor Philip Joseph, former Prime Minister and Law Commission Head Sir Geoffrey Palmer, current New Zealander of the Year Anne Salmond, and many, many other New Zealanders who have raised concerns about the government riding roughshod over New Zealanders' democratic rights and over our Constitution?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, well, I wouldn't agree with the point that they're making. I'd have to look at all the different contexts. They may not be in exactly the same place. But the bottom line, Mr Speaker, is the government was elected under a mandate it took to the people. It's absolutely stuck to that mandate. When it comes to these issues, it's presented them to the people of New Zealand. And the people who are riding roughshod over the rest of New Zealand are the Greens, who have played economic sabotage with the country and don't seem to care about that.
Order. Order. Supplementary question, Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Given that answer, can the Prime Minister point to exactly in his election platform where he promised that he would remove from family carers of disabled people the right to go to court to challenge the lawfulness of government actions?
Well,
right, Honourable Prime
Mr Speaker, I'd have to go back and look at all of the particular details, but from memory, the government made it clear it would look at the matter, and let's understand exactly what the government did in that legislation, which is it said, rightfully so, that it would address the issues raised in the Atkinson case. It also gave the right to pay family caregivers where they were looking after an adult disabled child. But the government also said there's been a very long-standing position where there has been arguably a line drawn about where the state's responsibilities start and finish and where family responsibilities start and finish. This government is actually moving the country into a place that only 2 other countries in the world are in, and we happen to be doing something that Labor never did in office.
Question number 2, David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his statements?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker.